Welcome to a brand new life, to a brand new day, all the way from the wastelands of California. My name is Michael, and I am a mere figment of your imagination. I look forward to once again serve you those sounds of salvation. First-time listeners out there, this is a very different kind of show, a place where we don't feel so alone. Let us chase away the light no matter what you at home choose to believe. We do admire you for your curiosity. In a moment, I'll be joined by Mr. Ole Dammegard. He is a very respected researcher and activist. He really needs no introduction here on this program, that's for sure. Now, without further ado, let's bring in Mr. Dammegard. And joining me right now is Ole Dammegard. How are you, sir?
I'm pretty good. I haven't slept for a couple of days, but otherwise than that, good.
Wait a minute, you haven't slept in a couple of days. What happened?
I don't know, but it's interesting because I hear that from people in many different countries that they wake up or they're woken up around 3 a.m. in the morning. And I'm not sure what's going on, if it's just coincidence or if it's on a spiritual level that we're being poked at, or if it's through the internet that they... I mean, when you look at some of the torture methods that these different letter agencies are using, one of them is sleep deprivation. And I hear a lot of people with sleeping disorders. So I don't know, but it's annoying as hell.
Really? So you think you're actually being targeted, Ole, in some regards?
No, not me personally, but what I have been told by people on the inside is that they have they can go through the Wi-Fi net and just send out sort of like a how to say, where it's just like in the old electrical systems, when like here on Bali, for instance, that it's not very good. So sometimes it comes like a wave of electricity to the house, and it can knock out the fuses. I've been informed that they can do the same through the Wi-Fi, but it's so it comes like an impulse or a pulse, just to sort of nod you.
Kind of like an energy weapon, then.
Yeah, sort of. Very simple, very simplified. I just think it's interesting that people keep mentioning the same time a day. That's why I've been looking into this a little bit, because often for most people, as far as I know, it's around 3 a.m., 3:11, 3:32, 3:33, around there. It's like somebody's just pushing you a little bit, and you wake up and you're totally awake for no reason, and your mind is just like, what? Why am I awake? I should be asleep. But you're sort of totally clear in the head, and you cannot go back to sleep. And it's annoying, once again, as hell.
I agree.
So,
yeah, that sounds like you've been tortured then for a while.
No, but it's absolutely not just me. Or maybe if we look, if this would be a sinister agenda, maybe they have handpicked IP addresses and just do it like that. I don't know. But I tell you, these IP addresses is interesting because I was doing a tour in Sweden, and there was this, normally I without bragging, I'm sharp as hell because I need to be super prepared.
Right.
With these areas that I'm into, if I get anything wrong, I go down, it's sort of, so normally I know my stuff, and I have PowerPoint presentations that are there, I put hundreds of hours into them. So I'm well prepared. And we came to Stockholm this time, and we were being, there was quite a lot of resistance. They kept shutting us down, the places I was going to talk. So we booked 2 venues every time, so that we had one official one where everybody thought we were going, but actually we were preparing another one. And then we had a van that went between the 2 places, so when people came to the original venue, we just drove them over to the other one around the corner. But it confused the people and the organizations that were trying to stop us. And the reason I kept getting stopped is for hate speech.
Hate speech?
Hate speech is the one that well, what can I say? I mean, if I've done maybe 1,000 interviews, I don't think you can find a hateful word anywhere. So go figure. But anyway.
Right.
This time I started going, and I just felt I was confused. I was, not good at all. It was, I only slept a few hours that day because when we're on tour, it's super intense, so we sleep like 4 hours per day. And then onto the next place, because also I and my tour organizer, we're doing the driving ourselves as well. So it's like intense, but super good. I'm not complaining at all. And anyway, on this day, I was not good at all on stage. I just felt, shit, I should have slept more or so.
Yeah.
So I just said, sorry, can we just take an intermission here? And so I went out in the cold air and I started slapping myself, like, come on, what's going on? Because when you're in front of a big crowd, you can't sort of like stand and just mumble and be all over the place. So I didn't feel good about that at all. And then this guy called Anders Sydborg, who I didn't know at the time, but he's a quite well-known guy in Sweden for going around with measuring equipment, showing how much radiation is coming out from different locations, which is absolutely mind-blowing. The levels of radiation that's being sent out there through 5G and crap in Stockholm. We're in Stockholm, by the way. She studies where the headquarters of the Ericsson is, and Ericssons are the ones that are really frontline developers of 5G.
Right.
So anyway, and also they are owned by the Wallenberg family, which is a very unknown part of the New World Order. Most people are not aware of them, but these are heavy players, and they've been that for generations, and their motto is to rule without visibility, and that is exactly what they do. So anyway, this guy came up to me and he said, he introduced himself, and then he said, "Are you aware of what happened when you were on stage?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Are you aware of the level of radiation or EMF that you received when you were on stage?" I said, "I don't know." And he said, "How do you feel?" I said, "I feel better now, but when I was up there, I felt really confused." And he said to me that, normally a person who would not be prepared, I do a lot of spiritual work with myself, and trying to get my shit sorted, my inner stuff as well. And I meditate, and I've been down. I'm an international Raj yoga teacher. I've been that for like 15 years. So I'm pretty balanced. And he said an ordinary person would have been on his knees, because he had checked measuring the EMF radiation while I was on stage, and it was coming from where I was standing. And he said he was sitting about 8 yards from where I was. And he said, and this radiation goes down dramatically per meter. So he calculated, and he said, if I remember right, he said where I was standing, there was about 250,000 microwatt per square meter, something like that. I don't know, but it was like way, way up there, more than what would be normal, and what was among the audience. And so I was like, what? Because that is the first time ever I possibly experienced anything like that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
And so he said, but I said, but how is that possible? Because I was like indoors, and there was like, the curtains were pulled, and he said, no, it's through your IP address, because I had Bluetooth headset on. So I was moving around freely in the room. He said, they go through the IP address, your IP address on your computer, and then they just hit you through Bluetooth through the headset. So, well, what can I say? That is what he said. And I felt that was what I experienced also. Another thing now when we're in this area, because they really tried to stop us physically as well on the latest tour.
I had no idea this was going on with you, by the way, Ole.
Well, that's when you're full of hate speech. No, I'm being censored right, left, and center everywhere. And it's because of bullying and hate speech or breaking community rules. Yeah, I was going to go live with Alfred Weber. He's an international lawyer, and he's got his own show. Yeah. And he said, I just want to make a live update on Facebook. Let's go, blah, 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 blah. And so he put in live update with Ole Dammegard and clicked, go live. And as soon as he clicked on the button, go live, it came up a big red sign. You have broken Facebook community guidelines or whatever, and you're being blocked.
Yeah. There's some heat on you there.
And I'm not, yeah, exactly. But it's not me. It's the information that I deliver. It's especially when I talk about false flag operations and how they are put together, the few methods they have against us, and sort of the template, the blueprint they're using. When I do shows about that, boom, that's when they hit me. So that is very sensitive information for them, because it's very easy to see once you understand what it is they actually do. It's like pulling down the pants of this magician, the Wizard of Oz, who's trying to manipulate us, and you just pull the curtain and it's there for everyone to see. So this is why I think they fear it. But another time, I mean, they tried to, I believe, stash our, or nail us for for lots of drugs in our RV.
They try to plant drugs on you.
The thing was, I can only say that, when I've been going on tour, it's ridiculously few people we're speaking in front. It should be a joke for these so-called powerful powers, because we're talking everything from 25 to 150, 200 people, because I can't go to the bigger venues because it got shut down. So we go to people's homes and we do it in the privacy of their homes, So we went to this place in Kalmar in the south of Sweden. It was a small little gathering. And then in the morning, 2:30 or something like that, when I came out and we were about to load the RV, I opened the door and it had been closed with the alarm on. I opened it and it stank of marijuana.
Oh. I
was like, what the hell is this? So I went in and I got a person out with a camera. We filmed live. I just said, this is it. I'm on tour. It's 2:30 in the morning. I've just come out and please, can you go in? We filmed the whole thing because I thought if they're going to try and do something with me, I want this filmed beforehand so I can show afterwards,
Yeah.
So I said, I sent in other people in the RV and said, what's that smell, dude? Can you feel it? Is it like wet socks or what? Everybody came out and said, oh my God, it's marijuana. It smells like Christiania in Copenhagen where they sell it openly. And I just felt the exact same thing. I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And in Sweden, you cannot have marijuana on you.
Can't have pot,
and this was a very heavy smell. So I was like, what have they done? So we took apart the whole RV, out with the seats, out with the water tank, out with everything, because I thought they planted, like a couple of kilos there somewhere in there to then a few kilometers down the road, stop us in some kind of a drug bust and say, well, here he is. What a bummer. But this truth seeker, apparently he was going on tour selling drugs. I mean, it's not the first one I've seen go down like that.
So, I mean, you go inside the RV or whatever, and it smells like a Cheech and Chong. We're in there, basically.
That was it. That was it. Exactly. You couldn't see the smoke, but it smelled exactly like that.
I see.
So we pulled the whole thing apart, and there was nothing. So I was like, how is this possible?
Maybe someone smoked inside. Oh, go ahead.
No, there were air holes in the floor of I think that's part of the circulation system in that model. So there are small holes underneath the seats, so I don't know if they sort of, I'm guessing now, but I would say maybe put a few tubes into these holes and then pumped the smell of marijuana into the van or the RV. And also with the plan of once we packed the whole thing, got going down the road, then just a few kilometers further down, there would be some kind of local road.
Or they smoked inside the RV.
True.
Also a possibility. You never know.
But I'm just saying it was locked and it was, there was an alarm. So I don't know. But that, once again, that would be a piece of cake for people that know what they're doing.
What they're doing, yeah.
For sure. But the smell disappeared while we were taking everything apart. So it wasn't a constant smell, and anyway, we loaded also since I went live with this, we were talking openly about it. And then we drove down, towards the south of Sweden and, just like 5-10 kilometers down the road, there were all of these, police cars out with blue lights showing. I'm not saying that it was because of that. I'm just saying that this was just an ordinary night and normally there's no activity like that in that area. But this time there was. Oof. And then the next day, if it's okay that I ramble on.
No, I love it. Go ahead. Yes.
Okay. And we went to another place. Once again, small crowd, but very, very beautiful people. But I mean, really, someone like myself should be an absolute joke that nobody would even care about if they were very powerful. Anyway, so we went to this place. We were in somebody's home, very nice people. I did my presentation. There was one guy there that looked very much like some kind of a person from one of these intelligence communities, blah, blah, blah. There's a certain, I can very often spot them, because many of them are former military guys and so on. And the way they behave,
the way they carry themselves.
Exactly. So I shake hands with every single one that comes to these gatherings, and especially with these people. And I look them in the eyes, and I can see they do not like me. But I feel that these people are the most important ones for me to invite, because it is through them that this control mechanism is kept in place, because they guard it. Instead of them working for us, they work for these dark forces. Anyway, so he took off. He looked terrified after half of the presentation, which is very unusual. And he took off. I didn't see him again. And then we left in the night. And then in the morning, the host couple were driving one of the people that had been there to the local bus. And they were driving down a tiny little road, where there are normally no police cars, no nothing like that, to the bus station. This was out in the countryside, and there were 3 people in the car, and then there was this police car where they were stopping cars, but they didn't stop any other cars. They only stopped that car, and they pulled them over, and this guy, and there were 4 police officers in this police car. That is not normal in Sweden. You have 2 per car, but 4. I don't think I've ever seen it. Anyway, there were 4 people in uniforms in that car. Anyway, the guy pulled them over, very polite. So the driver pulled down the window. He said, "I'm very sorry, I forgot my driver's license. It's right back there. I can go home and get it. I can be back in 5 minutes, And he said, no, don't worry about that. It's not about that. And then he said, a good day control. Whatever that means, I have no idea, but it's a very strange expression. This is a good day control. Anyway, so he said he got everyone in the car to lean forward towards him, like if he was filming them with some kind of body cam or something like that. But and all of them had to identify themselves, even the guy in the back seat. I mean, that doesn't happen in Sweden at all. And which these 3 people all found very odd. But the guy was very pleasant, very polite. And then when they were about to take off, the police officer just said, drive safely and be aware it's very easy to be killed in car accidents.
Wow, that's pretty crazy, by the way, Oli. And I got to ask you, do you feel like you might be in danger?
Of course, Michael. I've had people murdered around me. I emigrated twice. I put my family through moving from nations twice because of what I'm doing. And I've had death threats, and I had all kinds of stuff. So yeah, this is it. But this is standard in this area. It's one thing to like something on Facebook, but once you really start digging deep against these dark, whatever they are, then they hit that back, and it's a very, very brutal area to get into. So it's shit scary at times. So the answer is yes.
Oh my. Yes, I would imagine that this is pretty nerve-wracking for you, especially, having to travel around, and then you have people out there trying to plant drugs, and you have these death threats. So I'm sure you're on the edge constantly, Oli. And with COVID, the whole pandemic and all of that, that must have been pretty difficult for you, because very early on, we were both talking when all of this was going on, and, all of it was kind of new. And I have to say, It changed me, Oli. I gotta be honest with you. It kind of changed a lot of things for me in my life. I'm not sure if it really affected you to some regard, but for me, a lot of things changed out here in this side of the woods.
Are you talking about because of COVID or because of our interviews?
Oh, no. Well, I mean, because of COVID and just everything in general, life basically changed. Yeah.
No, for sure. Big time. And I was in lockdown in Spain. When, we were locked in, complete lockdown for almost, I think, about 2 months, where we could not leave the building. It was bizarre, absolutely zombie-like, futuristic movie set, bizarre. And, but at the same time, a blessing for me to be able to experience on my own body, because then I know what what people are talking about. But Spain was hit very, very hard, especially the area where we lived in Andalusia. So, but during this time, while being in lockdown, I kept doing all of these interviews. I'm sure this was the time when we did Summer Hours.
Yeah.
And we were in an apartment block of three stories high. And I had like ropes hanging down the side of the building. And my studio was a little cabin on top of it's sort of like a gardener's shed type of thing, but it was on top of this apartment building, and inside that I had my spotlights, green screen, my microphone, and so on. So I was doing all of these interviews from there, but at all times prepared that I could be picked up, because I know that this type of information is not very popular. At the same time, somebody has to do it. And I feel, like it's 40 years I've been down this road, and I'm just super happy now that millions and millions of people all over the world is now becoming aware. So it used to be a very lonely road. It's not anymore.
I agree with you on that one. And I got to be honest with you, furthermore on lockdown, it did have a pretty big effect on me. But the thing is, what I ended up doing was a ton of interviews, Oli, like I'm sure you did during the lockdown. And in doing so, I got tunnel vision, and I sort of blocked off the rest of the world and a bunch of other people around me. And I sort of just snapped out of all of that, perhaps 4 months ago, Oli. And I had this strange awakening happening. It just sort of happened out of nowhere. And to be honest with you, I sort of reinvented myself and rediscovered who I was. And I learned that I'm actually a pretty good person, Oli, and I realized I care more about a lot of things than other people do. For instance, I care more about some people in my life than they probably care about me, Oli, but all of that is fine. I've learned to accept a lot of things, and in doing all these sort of things, I feel like I've grown as a person. So in a way, it has been a blessing, like you were saying.
Regarding you being a good person, you could have just asked me. I could have told you.
That's true.
No, that you are. But I call 2020 not the year of the great reset, but the great retreat. I think this is, it was a horrible experience. It's still horrible in many ways what the world is going through. But at the same time, it is an incredible blessing in disguise, because people they've been forced to sit down and look themselves in the mirror, just stop the rat wheel and just like, what am I doing with my life?
That's what happened. Right.
Part of what has happened, who are these teenagers? They used to be babies just a few years ago, but I haven't even spoken to them. I've been too deep into my own desires and greed and TV and sports and whatever. So the world has come to an understanding around one thing. And I didn't think that was possible before COVID, because we were heading right straight towards absolute disaster. Everything was pointing towards disaster, because this machine was just moving on too fast, and it was destroying everything in front of it, including beautiful animal species and jungles and whatever. The nature was everything was just being destroyed, just because we were so short-sighted and only could see, I need profit, and greed, fill my greed, satisfying my needs. So there was no consideration for the surroundings. And then suddenly something said, pull the handbrake, boom. And the whole world came to a standstill. So thank God for COVID in that respect. I'm not saying anything. I mean, it's a super psychological operation with very dark energies behind it. That for 100% sure. But indirectly, it has also been a blessing when you look at suddenly like in the Mediterranean, where we used to live close to. I mean, the water started clearing up. The animals started, they weren't attacked or stressed by human beings anymore. The skies cleared up. There were no more chemtrails. The exhaust, the amount of the car exhaust and so on was going very dramatically down, because nobody was driving anymore. And so nature, and it's amazing how nature can just recuperate and say, okay, I'm back.
I'm back. Yeah.
I'm back. It goes very fast. Mother Earth is so forgiving. We rape her and we do all kinds of horrible stuff to her. As soon as we stop, she says, I forgive you, my child, and I'm back. Even with new species or whatever is needed, I just change it. And so it's also very interesting when you go in these areas when they're suddenly like a ghost town. I mean, there's just no one there. And how fast nature just takes over again. Concrete just says bye-bye, and grass and beautiful flowers, it just goes right through tarred roads and whatever. It's amazing how quickly it goes.
That's right. A reminder that we are not needed on this planet. Mother Gaia will exist whether we're here or not.
This is the strange thing I find with objects, like I have this ring that belongs to my father. He's dead since many years, but the ring is still here. And it's these things, life just moves on. We think that we're so important. And I think we are in our own world, whatever we create ourselves. But other than that, not a lot.
Time moves
once
on.
You die.
Yeah, time moves on and people move on as well. Yeah. That's what happens.
But then quite a few native Indian, that's such a stupid word. American Indians are, they have the saying that your actions and what you do here on earth now affects 7 generations. So we have a big responsibility how we use this time on this earth, maybe round or flat or whatever it is, the way we lead ourselves in our lives and with our intention, our actions, our words. It's much more important than I think most of us are aware of, because you can see also how we can damage people for a long time.
Right.
Like abuse or sexual abuse or just being horrible with words can really damage someone who will then go on to maybe damage her or his children, who would then go on, victim becomes victims of victims of victims of victims of victims. And so I just feel I had the blessing of being traumatized in quite a few different areas, which is, if you want to become a victim, great. I mean, I've been a super victim for years, but it doesn't work in the long run. It works for a while. You get empathy and people say, oh, I feel so sorry for you, a little tear here and there. But otherwise than that, it's not empowering. It's only once you come to the point of seeing that, oh my God, this horrible experience has given me the ability to be compassionate and understanding of people who are going through similar events. That's when you start getting the power back. And that's also when you can start help and assist and lift other people in similar situations. So what we're going through now is sort of like almost like a global trauma, where
that's
on
crazy.
The other side, I hope that we will be more compassionate, forgiving, understanding of each other, and helping to lift this world to a whole new beautiful level.
Right, and that resonates a lot with me, because for the last 4 months, that's exactly what happened to me, Oli. I was living an endless cycle of these sort of life review episodes of mine and just reliving lots of trauma that I've caused in people's lives. So night and day, these sort of segments of my mind, these broken segments, fragmented pieces of memories were just flashing back and forth night and day, Oli. I was haunted. It was pretty insane. I'm not even quite sure how I even maintained doing the show. This is the first time I've done a show in weeks, Oli. I've been battling the inner demons, and I found myself in the shadow alone. And in doing so, I rediscovered myself.
Yeah. And this is the blessing. Nobody is saying that it's easy. It's very brutal at times. It's very unnerving, and it takes a lot of courage sometimes to face what you have done. Yeah. I mean, sometimes we've done things that is not so good. And once because life has this generous way of often showing you both sides, so that you will be through karma, whatever you've done will come straight back at you. Maybe not from that individual that you might have hurt, but through some other experience that suddenly you are in the receiving end. Right. Of like, oh my God, is that how it feels? What it feels like? And then change can happen. Once you've seen both sides, become aware of your part, that and you took responsibility. I actually did that horrible thing, and boom, smack in your face. here's how it feels. Then once you started feeling both sides, then you can sort of start mending these fragmented pieces that you're talking about. And suddenly that indirectly starts opening up your heart, and you become more sensitive to what's going on, and you start appreciating life and people around you. And I thought it was really interesting what you said about that you probably care more about these people than they care about you.
Right.
For sure, because your heart is opening up and theirs is not yet. But maybe by you opening up, you will inspire them. They will see, what the hell is up with Michael? Something has happened. There's this, I don't know, it's a very strange, like warm feeling around him. He used to be really hard and ruthless, and here it's like, what? And these things inspires people to follow, not by words, but once you see and you feel the different change around an individual that goes through this process, it has this beautiful and inspiring effect on other people that then feel to go through the same horror to become a better person.
Well, that's exactly what happened, Ole, to a T.
Well, join the club.
I know. Maybe I'm just maturing. I don't know.
Sorry?
I said, maybe I'm just maturing a bit here. I don't know.
The ego will take credit for it, I tell you, right away, and say, oh, I'm getting better than everyone else. But that's not what it's all about. You have to keep the ego, you need the ego, but you have to pull the reins and just see that we're part of something much, much bigger than any of us really understand. At least I have no clue what's actually going on a bigger scale. But I do feel, though, that I'm just a small little piece in something. This is also what gives me a lot of hope with these so-called very dangerous or difficult situations, because I've experienced so many times that incredible things happen, that the chances are like 1 in a trillion that I bump into that person, or, what are the chances? We were just talking about that and boom, then it happened. What are the chances? Something bigger is going on. And sometimes it just feels like I've chosen like the role of a gladiator in this theater play of life, in this round, and so I'm sort of part of being a gladiator in a game that is being played out between good and evil. But there's a whole different aspect to where our higher selves are the observers, and also the crowd cheering sort of and helping to guide us go through this in the best possible way.
It reminds me of you're on the warrior's path, by the way, Ole.
Say again, please.
I said you're on the warrior's path.
I am. But do you know Arjuna from the Bhagavad Gita? Yes. It's Mm-hmm. Arjuna this is the name I've been given also by my Raj Yoga teacher. Arjuna.
Yeah, that's right.
And Arjuna is a perfect warrior. He has been groomed and trained as a warrior, but he has a mind of peace. He doesn't want to fight at all. He doesn't want, but he is the fighter. And so in the Bhagavad Gita, he has all of these problems where he speaks to Krishna, which is indirectly God. And he's like, what am I going to do? Because he's being pushed into a situation where he has to fight. And on both sides are friends and family. So he cannot not fight. Whatever side he chooses, there's fight. And so he has to stand up for what is right and true in his heart and do this fight. But how to do it? This is the big question. And I feel I identify very much with his inner struggle, because I sure as hell don't want to fight. At the same time, I cannot accept what is going on. I'm not judging the sinners. I'm judging the sins that they're doing. I try to avoid judgment, except for the actions, and the actions I cannot tolerate whatsoever. So I've dedicated my life to stop these dark things. Also through the traumas that I've been blessed with, I feel incredible empathy for people that have been fucked up and messed with.
Yeah.
By these ruthless forces. It's just like, it's not on. It is not on. As if I'm here, I see something, I will act. But I will act hopefully with a pure intention of lifting and empowering and stopping these assholes, because the thing is also, the bigger the assholes in your life, the greater the teacher. I tell you, the people in your life that are the hardest to deal with are indirectly your greatest teachers. Hate it, but I do believe it's true.
Wise words. I didn't think of it that way, but now that I do sort of let that marinate in my mind a little bit here, that makes plenty of sense, Oli. You're right.
What can I say?
Pretty wild.
That's the way it's in my life. And because what they're doing is, if you're healed, if you're whole, it doesn't matter where people try to push your buttons, because there are no buttons to push. But then somebody comes along and they push your button and you react, and you go into all of these kind of reactions, emotional stuff and whatever, attack and aggression, whatever. The only thing, had you been whole, you would not have reacted. So they're indirectly telling you, listen, Michael, I'm pushing that one. And if you had been whole, you wouldn't react, but now you are. So indirectly, I'm showing you where you need to focus to do inner work and heal that part of yourself.
My goodness, Oli.
So,
yes, a lot of what you're saying resonates with me.
What can I say? I think it resonates with all of us, because it's a global game. We all have to go through it. People think that it's that you can choose. No, sorry, it's mandatory. You can choose to ignore it, but the reality behind it will still be there, even on your deathbed. So this is where I feel, okay, hate it, but might as well do it. It's like going through boot camp. Might as well deal with it, because it's not getting any easier the older you get. So you might as well just stand up. And then people say, but it might be dangerous. Well, the thing with life is that they say all of us is going to die anyway. So, okay, then it's just a matter of time before it's time to check out. We might as well, I think, impress ourselves and excel and just say, okay, fuck it. I am going to be the best version of myself. I'm going to be brave, courageous. At least I'm going to try in the different areas. It is not easy. And I can say I am very brave in certain areas, and I'm an absolute chicken in other areas. And it makes no sense, Michael. No sense.
Yes.
I can stand strong while being threatened to my life. And then I have a massive problem phoning the doctor to make an appointment. It's like the phone call is scaring me more than the threat. It doesn't it doesn't make any sense at all. But
it's the balance, though. You need the yin and the yang in your life.
That is it. And it's also the native Indians are also talking about American Indians. Sorry about that. Native Indian. That is once again such a stupid word. They were there before any of us. So, but anyway, they talk about Wetiko, which is what they call a mind virus. And this mind virus is there at all times, trying to anywhere where we are not healed, where there's some crack in our wholeness, this mind virus will enter and start infecting our mind with fear, doubt. Doubt is the biggest traitor, by the way, and just get us into a negative mindset. So anywhere where we're not whole, we will be attacked through this mind virus. And this is what we have to become aware of, because also when you look at how these dark forces, the New World Order, Illuminati, whatever you want to call them, reptiles, I don't know, reptilians, sorry, whatever they are, they only got one real weapon against us, and that is fear. It's only through fear that they can control us. If we were not fearful and they said, well, you have to, we would just say, oh, what? And then take a cold beer, kick back and get on with life. But once we get fearful, that's when they got us by the balls. And that is where we have to bring the power back and let go of fear and see that, okay, fine. If I'm mortal, fair enough. Apparently I'm going to die anyway. So why not get the flag up on top? I'm not talking about like being a patriot. I'm talking about the patriot of yourself, maybe, to empower yourself and embrace yourself and help yourself through these dark waters. And because not easy. And then also another saying from Native Indians are, we stand alone together. The thing is, you are on your own. I'm very sorry. We are all on our own on this journey, but we can stand side by side also and help to support each other in these difficult times. So I think more than ever, instead of thinking I, me, and mine, this is a time to think about us and we. Change the wordings and see what can I do to help you? What can I do to help us? What can I do to lift the situation here? How can I empower instead of depowering? And there was one time I was on a Greyhound bus down in Arizona somewhere, and it was the first time I met an Apache. And if I can brag, I'm adopted by the Apache Nation now.
Yes.
But not through him, but that is one of the most beautiful things in my life. But anyway, I was with this guy and we were sort of speaking. I thought it was really interesting because I've always loved the Apaches and
the culture. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we were talking and I said something and then he didn't answer. He was just quiet. And then he answered and then I just replied. And then it was quiet again. And then he answered. I thought, this guy doesn't like me because there was no flow whatsoever in this conversation. And then later I found out that what he was doing was out of respect for me. He was listening to what I said. He was thinking, what did this individual just say? Going through it. And then this is the Apache way, at least the pure old ways was, and then if he had nothing to add of value, he would stay quiet. Or if he had something, he would do it first when thoroughly thought through and then add whatever could empower and add something good to the conversation. So that was the reason for the silence. And if you see modern days, and especially in your country, my God, people speak all the time and many times without having anything really to say of substance.
Yes. Well, here in America, people babble about mindless nonsense nonstop. So yes, you are very right. People do say plenty of meaningless things every second, every moment of our lives, especially here in America, Oli. Plenty of people saying things that are just ludicrous. But going back to what you were saying about, being self-empowering and all those things, and that's kind of what I took out of this experience as well. And when I said I found myself in the shadow, I only found myself. No one else was there. I had to pull myself out of whatever mental hole, depression, whatever it was I was experiencing. It was only me that was able to do that. No one else. And for some people, they stay stuck like that throughout their whole lives and they make no progress, Oli. And it's quite sad. You can't stay stuck there.
It takes courage, Michael.
Yeah.
And not all of us are brave. And just like I said, I'm brave in certain areas and other areas I'm totally paralyzed. That's
the balance.
So it's a constant one. I sometimes felt that, now I've done it. And then like 3 days later, something happens and I just find out, no, you hadn't. And I think especially when you say to life, okay, now I got it, life will slap you and say, I don't think so. Out of caring and just saying, listen, you're here for a reason. You're here to evolve as a spiritual being on a physical plane. Not easy, but every time it's just like being a surfer. The better you get, the higher waves you can deal with. And
right.
Believe me, they will come. So, but you would be bored otherwise as well. So the better the surfer, the bigger the waves they're looking for. And otherwise they would be bored to tears. So this is also where I say when people are complaining too much about their life and, it's so horrible. There's so many things going on, so much drama in life. What kind of movies are you watching? I ask you, what kind of movies are you attracted to? Because very often people complaining about, the world is so evil, the world is so horrible. Well, when you ask them what movies they're watching, it's like documentaries about serial killers, prison camps, thrillers, zombie movies, horror movies. And then we're presented similar top themes in our life and we're complaining. I don't get it because once again, please understand you would be bored if you hadn't these ingredients. That's why you're being sort of lured or pulled into these areas. So once again, I'm not saying this in an accusing way. I'm saying get out of victimhood and see that you are actually a part of both creating this by allowing it or being a creative force in it, but take the power back by seeing what is actually going on, and then take responsibility and say, I am, what is my part? Look yourself in the mirror, not nice sometimes, and then pull through and come out better on the other side. And hopefully, once again, that will also empower your surroundings, your family, your friends, and so on. Not by you pointing at them accusingly, saying you were fucked up and you were this and you were that, but by living by example, by lifting yourself out of these dark times, because the only one that can do it for you, Michael, is you.
Correct.
The only one that can do it for me is me. I wish it would. I mean, I've been looking for a savior for so many years, please save me, save me. Well, sorry. The finger keeps coming back, pointing at me, So the only way to it is you have to do it. You have to do it. We stand alone, but together.
I agree 100%. So much to add to that, Oli, but of course, I'm looking at the time here and I don't want to take up too much of your time, but of course I have to ask you this. John McAfee, recently was found dead in a Spanish jail. I'm kind of curious what your thoughts and opinions are on our friend John McAfee.
I didn't even know he was dead.
I'm breaking the news to you.
You are indeed.
Wow, they found him dead in a jail cell, my friend.
Well, I don't really have any comments on his departure until I look into it, but I found him a very peculiar individual. I've only seen documentaries about him, and documentaries can so easily be made in any direction you want to do it. And, I know documentary makers that they say, in what direction do you want this topic to go? We can make it go
anyway,
in one direction or the other. So documentaries are really scary and sometimes incredibly powerful, sometimes incredibly deceiving. So I don't know. I didn't know him personally. I thought he seemed to be pretty messed up in many different areas, but who am I to judge? So I need to check it.
Yeah, he was a very troubled individual for sure. We all have our demons. And of course, Mr. McAfee was here on this program. We will miss the guy very much. I've had a funny little moment with him before we did the interview. About an hour before we did the show, he called me and we had a little chat, and he was a very interesting guy. I'm gonna miss the guy, to be honest. He was pretty entertaining when I talked to him, so I definitely will miss the guy. It's terrible that this happened. Apparently it was a suicide. That's what they're claiming, but John McAfee referenced Jeffrey Epstein in a suicide last year in a tweet saying that he's not suicidal, and if he's found dead then they whacked him. That's basically what he said. He even got a tattoo on his arm that says whacked. So I don't know, Oli, this is rather interesting. I don't think he killed himself. In my opinion. I could be wrong, but, the man was saying, I'm not going to do it.
Once again, I need to look into it more before saying, but at the same time, a lot of people are committing suicide that are not committing suicide, if you know what I'm saying.
Oh, yes.
And especially when you get into certain areas of as far as I know, he was getting himself into some very shady areas financially and with drugs and stuff like that. So for him to be taken out inside a prison could be because of drug deals but it could also be of his involvement in this antivirus area. I don't know. He was a very colorful individual. Who knows? I don't know, but I always find it very strange when people commit suicide inside the jails, where many times jails are made so that you cannot commit suicide, and then suddenly they do it anyway. So, for instance, dear Mr. Jeffrey Epstein, I can tell you that was not a suicide. Is he still alive? Is he dead? If he is dead, then he was whacked for sure, because his knowledge about the secret networks behind the scenes up in the higher, Freemasonic and New World Order hierarchy where he was like, I would say that he was a supplier of everything needed to blackmail people. So he was the arranger of parties, He was the deliverer of drugs, prostitutes, underage kids.
He was the source for the upper. I was going to say he was the source for the upper brass in the world. I would say.
Yeah, one of them. Mm-hmm. One of them.
One of many.
You had Jimmy Savile in England. He was doing very similar stuff. You had Marc Dutroux in Belgium. He was doing similar stuff, and very sinister. But these people work for the agencies. I mean, both Mossad, CIA, and other. I don't think you can really label them, but to get people by the balls,
yes,
get them into situations where, like sexual situations,
sure,
with, drugs, whatever. The thing is that every single building that Jeffrey Epstein had was packed with cameras and recording equipment, and so whatever, even the toilets and so on. So whatever these people were doing, they were being invited in, come on, be with the big boys, you're going to be one of us. Oh, there's all of these celebrities. Oh, anything you want. It's amazing. It's amazing. And so people go there. I mean, some of them naive, some of them, not really knowing what they're getting themselves into. And then they get high on cocaine and whatever. They're prostitutes is wonderful. And suddenly among the prostitutes are children, underage children. And while they're totally off their head, maybe the prostitutes leaves the room and there's only naked children around.
And all the time you're being recorded. Yeah, while being filmed. So a lot of these people were being blackmailed, no doubt. And of course, Peter Nygard, the Canadian Jeffrey Epstein, we forgot to mention, another guy who, was cruising around, hanging out with 14-year-old girls, that sort of thing. He's, a evil, terrible man, just like Jeffrey Epstein, just like a lot of these people out there. But my goodness, for the longest time, people were saying, oh, it's a conspiracy. There's no way, no way in hell this was going on. No way the feds were involved. Oli, I think we know the truth. I think everybody was involved. Everyone had a hand in this. Everyone sort of helped out. Everyone sort of, jumped at the opportunity to get involved with all this going on, all the drugs, all the young girls. It corrupts people. Power corrupts, money corrupts, all these things. They ruin the soul. I think all these people fell victim to Jeffrey Epstein. They were seduced by it.
You just have to ask yourself. I mean, they say everybody has a price.
Yeah.
I think it's only through very deep inner work that these desires leave you so that you cannot be corrupt. But until you do that, are you still there?
I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Until you get to that level, I mean, what would your price be to sell out your friends or families or whatever? What would your price be to stay quiet if something went down that you knew? Would it be, what are your desires or your fears? This is how they get to you. And so the people, and also what I mentioned before was that when people are high on drugs, they don't even know what they're doing. And that's also when you can do horrible stuff to them or things that can be used against them later.
Yeah.
And Michael, no problem if we drag out this interview. I really enjoy it, so it's up to you to stop it whenever you want. But there was a politician, I think he was from Nicaragua, called Alfredo Caldero, and he was involved in the whole Iran-Contras scandal before it was exposed, where George Bush Sr. and Bill Clinton, who was then the governor of Arkansas, was deeply involved in what was called the Enterprise, created by Barry Seals, the pilot Barry Seals, and what's his name, Oliver North. That's a horror guy for you. Anyway, but these people were involved in something called the Enterprise, where they stole weapons out of the National Guard. They got rid of the serial numbers on the guns there was a factory that was officially making parting meters, but they were actually making the parts where the serial number was on, and so they couldn't replace them. So these guns were sent down to countries like Nicaragua, El Salvador, Honduras, to arm the so-called Contras, who were then committing absolute atrocities down in these countries and so on. But the whole idea was to get control over the cocaine,
right,
empires down there. So these planes were flown down by one of the pilots, were my friend Chip Tatum. Were flying down there with weapons, unloading all of these weapons down there, and then they were flowing back containers and cooling packs without the pilots even knowing what was in them. They thought that there was like blood and whatever things, that because some of the planes were medevac planes, but they were actually raw cocaine. And then they flew back to airports or airstrips like in Neenah,
Arkansas, right.
This is how Bill Clinton got into the game, him and his partner Dan Lasseter. And then through George Bush Sr. and Bill Clinton, the whole crack epidemic started in the U.S. They were behind that while also fighting the war on drugs.
Oh, don't forget about Roger Clinton, by the way, brother of Bill Clinton.
He was like just an alcoholic joke in the whole thing, I would say.
Well, but yes, anyway, essentially he was. But also I know the guy who was selling most of that crack cocaine, by the way, well, at least portion of it in Los Angeles, that was done by Rick Freeway Ross, I should call him by his actual name. I've interviewed the guy many, many moons ago, and, he was responsible with Gary Webb selling crack cocaine in Los Angeles, and the guy made millions.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like when you see the bigger networks, I mean, this is how did the drugs get to Los Angeles? How
CIA.
did it get to Chicago? How did it get to Miami? How did and these are the networks you have to look at. And that's where George Bush Sr., key player in this. And on a lower level, you had dear Mr. William Clinton here and his horror wife.
And Oli, it never stopped, by the way. The drug trade, it's still very strong within our government. It's still happening today. I mean, it didn't just, it didn't just stop overnight back in the 70s. All this is still going on today. We're so intertwined with the Mexican drug cartel to this day, truth be told.
How surprising is that not? Anyway, so there was this guy who was involved in the whole, because we had also down in Nicaragua, you had, what was his name? I'm sorry, I forgot his name now, but he was the president of Nicaragua, and he was deeply involved. Noriega.
Yes.
Noriega. He was deeply involved in this drug thing, and so was this politician. So I make a whole big, long story shorter. Anyway, so dear Alfredo, he came to visit George Bush Sr., and he was saying, listen, guys, I want more. I want more. And so they said, okay, let's he came to the White House. There are photos of him with Bush Sr. and Felix Rodriguez, another guy in Operation 40, deeply involved in the Iran-Contras whole thing there. And so they said, yeah, okay, no problem. Let's talk tomorrow. But before then, we know that you love beautiful women and so on. So here you go. So he was tempted by this beautiful prostitute, and so she led him into, I think it was a hotel room, or if it was in a hotel or if it was in the White House, I'm not sure. But anyway, what they got him on was Ascopolamine. Ascopolamine is what I think it's called. It's called the voodoo drug.
Oh, yes.
Also, it's a super, super scary one.
It's from a tree.
It comes from a trumpet flower, a beautiful flower, trumpet shape, that grows down in the mountainsides of especially Colombia, I believe. And what they can extract from it is a liquid that is totally clear, no smell, no taste whatsoever. But what it does is that if you get it in your drink and you drink it for like 3 or 4 or 5 hours, you will become the absolute obedient slave of whoever orders you to do anything. And afterward, you cannot remember a thing. The only thing that you experience when you start coming out of this zombie-like state is that you got a dry mouth. So anyway, Chip Tatum, the CIA whistleblower, who was the commander of George Bush Sr.'s private hit team, Pegasus, he personally told me about these things, and he, what he said with Alfredo Caldero was that they spiked this drink with this.
Scopolamine, by the way, it's called.
Without him knowing it, the prostitute, this beautiful prostitute, was actually a man.
Oh my God.
They got Alfredo involved in gay sex, and they got him to give this prostitute a blowjob and all these things. And then they got him to murder the prostitute and cut him up in pieces and eat pieces of him while being taped.
Jesus.
And so, are you still there?
I'm here. Can you hear me? Or did we cut out?
Okay, sorry. There's these weird cutouts, so I don't know. Anyway, so Alfredo wakes up, thinking, oh, I had a great time with a beautiful prostitute. And so he goes back the next day and going to negotiate and so pull the arm of Bush and his partners in crime there. And they say, not a problem at all, dear Alfredo. But before we continue, let's just watch a video together. And they put that one in there. They see him being part of the cannibalistic thing with, murdering, chopping up this prostitute, eating parts of him, and so on. And from then on, Alfredo Caldero was no longer a problem. And so this is one of the ways they do. This is quite a drastic example. But most of the time they don't need, to do that. And for instance, the Lolita Express, the Jeffrey Epstein out to his island. I mean, it used to be people were flattered and then, oh my God, I can be one of them, an exotic island. Then the scandal broke, and then people are trying to, no, I wasn't there. Well, many of you were. So yeah. Interesting times.
Very interesting times. And by the way, the drug you were talking about is called scopolamine, by the way.
Yeah.
The devil's breath. Mm-hmm. Very, very powerful stuff.
Now there's the mafia in several countries are using these things, and they have, it's a super scary drug, because what they do is they find some wealthy guy. They have a beautiful woman approach him. Boom. She spikes his drink. He drinks. Boom. He's under her control. And then they take him to the bank and gets him to empty everything and then leave him. And then he comes to his senses a few hours later, maybe can't remember a thing, has no idea, just a dry mouth. And then he goes to the maybe he's trying to pay with his credit card. It says no, denied. So he goes to his bank and say, listen, I've got like 14.6 billion in my bank account. What's going on? My card doesn't work. And they say, well, it's empty. And he said, how is that possible? And they say, well, you were here yesterday. You emptied it. He said, no. And they said, well, here's the footage. And he can see himself go in there, empty everything. So it's a really scary drug. And also an incredible way of getting control over individuals.
Yeah, it's very evil to do such a thing to anybody. But there are people out there that will go those lengths just to get what they want in life, Oli.
Well, there you go.
Wild stuff. Very wild stuff. And by the way, Oli, you are not vaccinated, I have to assume, correct?
That is so correct. You have no idea. I mean, if you want to get into this area, oh my God. And please don't call it a vaccine, because that is not the correct description. The correct description is a bioweapon of mass destruction. It is a killing, culling drug of absolutes, the most sinister, most evil, satanic mindset ever. It is, the world has never seen anything anywhere near what we are experiencing now. And I'm not saying this because I'm an expert in this area. I'm saying it because what I do when I don't know stuff, I try to find the best experts in the world and interview them and learn from them. And this is what I've done. So I'm in direct contact with heavyweight, the people that comes from the inside, some of them from the vaccine industry, but also incredible doctors. So I'm on a weekly basis in contact with Christian Northrup, Dr. Dolores Cahill, Dr. Tenpenny, Anthony Kaufman, these type of individuals, Robert Kennedy Jr., not personally in contact, but very closely. These people who are standing up and trying to find out what is actually in these vaccines. And also, you just have to go to the websites of some of the companies like Moderna to find out what's actually in. At least they're telling you some of it, and it's absolutely horrifying. It's like there's 0.00000000000% good things for you in it, and there's 99.99999999999% of absolute evil in that so-called vaccine. But there's more. There's six, as far as I know, there's at least 64 different vaccines at the moment, and so some of them might be less horrible than others, but most of them are bad news, and I cannot exaggerate bad news. So please stay away from them. I tell you, if anyone got close to my loved one with one of these needles, I would fight them like it had been a bazooka.
My goodness.
A machine gun. The same level of danger. Worse, actually.
And what's the scene like out there in terms of COVID? Out here in California where I am, I'm in a very small town out in the desert, about an hour east of San Diego. So I'm out here in the desert, and COVID cases are quite low. So it hasn't really been too, it hasn't been a big deal out here too much for most folks. But out there, I'm not quite sure what the scene is like. Oli, are people really being affected by COVID in Spain?
I'm on Bali now. I had to immigrate again. So I'm on Bali in Southeast Asia. But I would strongly suggest that what the world has experienced has absolutely very little to do with the virus and very much to do with global control. It's based on the old Roman template, problem, reaction, solution, which is a standard template that we have to become aware of because it's being used on such a repeatedly, incredibly massive scale against us. It goes like this. The few in power secretly creates a problem. And this problem is normally nowadays an alleged mass shooting, an alleged terror attack, an alleged financial crash, or a virus. I've been saying this for many years. The viruses, they love them. Okay. So that's the problem. Problem, reaction, solution. The reason they create this problem, let's say it's a bomb, boom, is to get a reaction from the population. A reaction, not an action where we had the time to think through things and stuff like that and take sort of a considerate decision on what to do, but an emotional reaction where we're thrown back in our sofa saying, oh my God, this is horrible. I need protection. And then they turn towards, I want to say also that they hit us emotionally through women, children, and beautiful teenagers when it comes to mass shooting. But otherwise, they need to get emotional. This is just normal marketing. Anyway, so we get totally shocked, and what they're aiming for is a reaction. So we don't think, we just go into an emotional reaction, turning towards the people that we think are there to protect us, not understanding that it's actually them who have created the problem. And so they will say, well, the only way we can help you with a solution with this horrible problem is, and boom, in comes the solution. And the solution is something we would never, ever have accepted had it not been for the problem. Problem, reaction, solution. And nowadays it's actually problem, reaction, fascism, because every single time they come with a solution, it is the same. It is more and more control, more and more Robocops, more and more militarized forces in the street, your freedoms out the window, you having to pay for unjust wars that has nothing to do with justice, but only their greed. It's just more and more cameras, more and more, all of these things. So back to Corona. What is going on here? The vaccine, the so-called vaccine, I tell you, you're welcome to saw off my right arm if I'm wrong here. The vaccine was there from day one. There was just a question, how are we going to be able to scare the global population enough for them to accept to take the jab? That is it. Problem, reaction, solution. So they created a virus out of thin air. If you look at it, the numbers. Okay, let me go back a little bit.
Okay.
How do you know that it's COVID? You know that through the so-called PCR test. That is the only way to diagnose if it's COVID or just an ordinary flu, pneumonia, whatever. So the PCR test, we go to the inventor who was given the Nobel Prize for it, Carey Mullins. So what did he say? Because he invented this whole thing, he was also very much involved in trying to identify and isolate the HIV virus, the alleged HIV virus that is said to have caused AIDS. He never managed to find it. No one has ever isolated the HIV virus. It is a massive, big question mark conspiracy around that whole thing. The whole AIDS thing with Dr. Robert Gallo as one of the main players in creating AIDS is a massive, big operation. Anyway, so Carrie Mullins, the inventor of the PCR test, says you can find this PCR test. What it does is that it can locate anything inside of you. If it's there through a multiplying, recycling or cycling process, if it's in your body, it can amplify it so that you can see, yep, we got that one in you. Yep, we got that one in you, depending on the number of cycles. And we got like trillions of cells, viruses, or exosomes, whatever you want to call them. But naturally in ourselves, it's floating around. We're like a big pool of all kinds of weird or good stuff, whatever. But what he did say was the PCR test cannot, I repeat, cannot be used to diagnose any disease at all. That is not what it does. And so you can find him on YouTube. He says that multiple times you cannot use this to diagnose anything because that is not what it does. Whatever you want to find, it can find it for you. And then just a few months before they were going to unleash this whole operation, Carrie Mullins very appropriately died or was found dead. So it could be natural. I don't know. I haven't looked into his death, but it was very, very nicely timed that he died before his PCR test was being unleashed on the world as the one to determine, have you got COVID or have you not? What he said was this would be an absolute lottery. It could be show you anything. And depending on how many cycles that you go through to amplify whatever you want to find, you will find it or you will not. And so when you see the way that different institutions are using the different amounts of cycles up to 40, they will for sure, it will show positive or negative depending on what. It's an absolute lottery. You can take one PCR test in the morning. It could be positive. You can take one in the afternoon. It could be negative. It is so inaccurate that you can't even believe it. And this is the one that is being used globally to decide yes or no. Have you got COVID or have you not? Then you look at the number of deaths. When you look at this, the different sources, if you just don't go from the numbers from the CDC, which is the Center for Disease Control in Atlanta, Georgia, I would strongly suggest it's actually the Center for Disease Creation is what CDC stands for. They're also the owners of patents of these viruses, many of them, like the Zika virus, the Ebola virus. They are the ones that are the owners of the patents of these laboratory-made creations, horror creations, that is then being unleashed, or at least we're being told that they are happening to the world.
Don't worry, Oli. It's just for science, Oli. That's all. You know, they're not really trying to harm anyone. It's just for science. You know, that's why they experiment, Oli. It's okay. Just for science. No big deal.
You know, the CDC was created in 1947, I believe, at the same time as the OSS was turned into the CIA, at the same year as NASA was created, at the same time as the World Military Games was created, and just before NATO was created in 49. And these entities have been working very closely, been in bed with each other from day one. And many of the people that were part of creating it were German scientists that was being exported from war-torn Germany.
That's right.
Through what is called Operation Paperclip, through the red lines on the Vatican, and imported into the US and down into South America, where they were just given new identities, just like the federal FBI's witness protection.
Our government gave them a little vacation, that's all.
They just change your identity, change your title. Also, the big German chemical giants were they got a new name, a new logo, relocated, and boom, there you go, back in business, nothing changed. So these companies and the numbers, you have to be extremely careful to believe. And if you remember Mark Twain, he said there are three types of lies: lies, damned lies, and statistics. This is it. And statistics is what being used against us as a weapon. And dear Mr. Bill Super Psychopath Gates, he was in 2015, he was interview. I think you can still find it on YouTube. It was just an interview where he was asked, okay, now people are having their summer holidays. Are there any books that you can recommend while you're down on the beach and getting some suntan? And one of the books he recommends, I kid you not, was How to Lie with Statistics. That is the title of the book. You can hear him talk about how to lie with statistics, which is exactly what they're doing. And so the whole world has been deceived by a map that has been delivered by the Johns Hopkins Hospital. And I interviewed the guy who invented that map in the 90s. He was the one that made it possible to see, instead of a lot of boring statistics, piles of numbers, he made graphics and combined the two of them. So suddenly you could see it in a graphic way, get a feeling for statistics.
Yes.
So he has really, his name is John Cullen, I think. Anyway, I interviewed him and he said that he has compared the numbers that the CDC is letting out and the map that is being shown globally with all of the death statistics. He says there's nothing is correct around this map. It's an absolute algorithm that is just spitting out numbers in random, like nothing is correct there. And so you look at, for instance, there's a website or an organization called euromomo.eu. And that is sort of like, it's a European coordinating organization that are gathering the statistical numbers from different nations in the case of outbreaks and whatever, And when this whole COVID happened, the numbers stayed absolutely static, even though media that has mainly been controlled by the owners, that is very much involved in the New World Order agenda. Most of them are in this network. The numbers that was being pumped out there was totally not correct. And you go to, for instance, the Elmhurst Hospital in New York, in Brooklyn, where they said, this is the epicenter of the whole thing. This is it. What was in there? Empty. So we actually started, I was part of, I believe, starting like a whole thing that went viral in the world called #FilmYourHospital, where people were through media told your hospital is overloaded with dead bodies. We have to use the ice hockey rink. We have to use cooling trailers, all of these things. The bodies there's so many people dying. But when people actually went to the local hospitals, instead of just watching the news, they found that they were empty. And so if you really start looking into statistics, for instance, in Sweden, in 2011, I think it was 24.1 dead per 1,000 people in Sweden that year, in 2011. 2020, when Sweden was hit by this corona pandemic, it was 24.1, the exact same number as before. As when there was not a pandemic, it was the exact same number dead people per 1,000 individual. What I'm saying is that what they've done is they changed the numbers. So nowadays, if you look into the statistics of the number of dead people through cancer or pneumonia or car accidents or suicide, they have gone down to almost zero. And the number of COVID deaths have gone skyrocketed. So what is actually happening is that we're looking at more or less the same number of dead people, but the causes are being changed. And that is through the power behind the World Health Organization, which people think this is a freestanding, independent organization. Absolutely not. It is a private organization and was mainly funded by the U.S. and Bill and Melinda Gates. Then the U.S. government pulled out. So now it's the tool of Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And when you look at the whole COVID operation, you will find the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation at every single step on the line. They will be there. Every single, right behind the patent, the tests, the masks, all of it, the vaccines, the funding of the different areas, the creation of these companies, Bill and Melinda and dear Mr. Anthony Fauci, these type of super criminals. When you look into their actions, we're looking at unbelievable super criminals in combination with what is called the Fourth Industrial Revolution, or the World Economic Forum is another more pretty name of the 1%. They meet once a year in Davos. And this is where this new type of Adolf Hitler individual called Klaus Schwab is presenting what they actually want to do to us. And this is, I'm sorry if I pump you up with a lot of facts here, but you
That's
can
okay.
rewind and go through it. Anyway, it actually comes down to what is called Agenda 21. Agenda 21 is something that 100 and I believe more than 190 nations have signed. And it is a plan of absolute madness on steroids. The architects that was given the task to put this together was Gro Harlem Brundtland, former Prime Minister of Norway and a Bilderberg member, heavy duty individual in the dark forces. And another one is Maurice Strong, who is one of the people that have been pushing forward many of the sort of the players like Bill Clinton and other people. He's been sort of an advisor in the background, preparing them and pushing them forward like that. He's also one of the key people behind what is called the climate change fall movement, which when you look into it, not true at all either. Mother Earth is in a lot better state than what we're being told. But it's all a matter of how to control us, how to tax us to death and so on. So Agenda 21 is what is actually being carried out here and is what we're actually experiencing. So Agenda 21, what it says is, and I kid you not, once again, I wish I was, it says that all property will belong to the government, a global government. All property, I'm talking about your car, your house, your toothbrush, everything will belong to the government.
I already feel like they own everything now, but yes, go ahead, Oli.
Including your children. Your child will belong to the global government. They will own all assets, all energy, all water, all earth, all thing in the air. It would be, and they're presenting it as the fourth industrial revolution. That's a different name for the same New World Order agenda. But they're presenting it in a very beautiful way, saying, you don't have to worry about anything anymore because you will not own anything. We will take care of it for you. Happy days are here. I would say slavery forever is here
yes.
if we let this happen.
That is terrible.
And the power of Agenda 21, and you will see many of these players, like prime ministers and people that are now fighting COVID, behind them, there will be the logo Agenda 21 on stage somewhere in the background. That is it, because that is what is actually being carried out. And the power of Agenda 21 is that it's the same agenda in all of these different countries on a local level, on a national level, and on an international level. Meaning, and this is why all of these countries are in line with each other on a local, national, and international level. So the exact same agenda is being carried out in your local courthouse or your local authorities, like your national government, and the international institutions are working with the exact same agenda. And this is why we really have to wake up, because this is a very powerful structure that we need to stop on a local, national, and international level.
Right. The United Nations plan to depopulate about 95% of the world by 2030, I would have to assume or imagine. I'm just guessing here, but it seems like that is well underway, Oli. If you stop for a moment and look around and see what's going on around the world, seeing all the conflicts, all the future conflicts that we will probably have with, let's say, China, maybe North Korea, maybe even Russia. All kinds of things are sort of coming to front now, Oli. So who the hell knows what's going to happen? I feel like a big conflict is around the corner. It is on the horizon. A great war is something I do envision, Oli. And I hate to, bring us down here, but I do feel like a big conflict is on the horizon here. It's only imminent.
Or not.
Well, I hope not.
Because if you look at all the big wars that have been created over the last few hundred years, you will see the same power structure behind the same families, the same bankers behind it. So I don't think it's not natural for normal people to go to war. And if you ask your neighbor, do you really think are you willing to go and risk your life and get shot or your children or whatever to do something in North Korea? I would think most people say, are you crazy? Of course not. How about Syria? Of course not. But persuaded and pushed through propaganda into these areas.
Right.
And the reason why they're demonizing certain countries are most of the part is the central banks. They want to get in control over the central banks in these countries, because the Rothschild family, who owns about at least half of all assets in the world, are desperate to get total control over the central banks, because it's only when you have got control over the central bank that you can control this whole massive deception of money. When you look into what money really is, it's unbelievable how it's created out of thin air, and how money is not the important thing, but what they're creating is debt. They want you in debt so that you can be controlled. That's why, and they're telling you, it's like mortgage. The real meaning of mortgage, it's a French word. It means death cage. Death cage is the meaning of mortgage. Anyway, so, I lost the thread here.
I was just going to say, do you feel, I was just going to ask you, Oli, do you feel like a big conflict, something that we might see in the next, let's say, 5 years, or that's probably not going to happen?
No, the people in the New World Order, they want the conflict.
Sure,
they thrive on death and destruction. It's up to us, the normal people, to say, absolutely no way. Absolutely. If you want to fight the war, you do it. You do it. But they never do. They send us as cannon fodder. And no, they thrive on conflicts. And it's like, I think it was the mother of some of these Rothschilds a while ago. She said that if my children stopped waging war, the world will be at peace. And I totally agree. If these forces, would stop messing with us, there would be no wars. And the reason why they're pointing towards North Korea is the central bank. The reason why they're pointing towards Iran is because the central bank there. That's the reason for the war in Syria, Cuba, these countries that are the last few ones with central banks. Because if they got control of the central bank, they can control the money in that nation. And you control the money, you control the food. You have that country under your control, but hidden control. So that is what they're trying. That's why they're trying to demonize these countries. Oh, North Korea, it's so horrible, it's so horrible. Or Iran, it's so horrible, it's so horrible. Or Syria, it's there's a different agenda going on. There's a very different agenda. And this whole thing with China, the idea with the New World Order has been for a long time to move, to deconstruct or destroy the US, and then move the headquarters of the New World Order to China or to Asia. That's where they then going to control. They're going to destroy the US as we know it, which is they're really doing their utmost at the moment, and turn it apparently into sort of like a nature reserve or something like that, with bisons and stuff where the elite can go and shoot and kill and whatever. But the whole thing in the US as we know it will be gone. It would be, if their agenda goes through, there will only be so-called smart cities where everything is being controlled in a digital grid, autonomous vehicles, everything is speaking to each other, including your toilet and your fridge and your phone and the chip in your hand and whatever, so that you will be living, if you are still alive, will be a slave under total control. And I wouldn't say 90% depopulation. They are talking about 2/3, but that is a lot of individuals anyway. And by the way, who are they to play God? I would say if they want less people on the world, please, there's something called suicide. I will not stop you. I can even open the window for you. Feel free. That's one less, so, but that's never the tune they play. It's always us that should be the ones paying the high price.
You've done interviews all around the world, Oli, and I got to ask you, where exactly is your favorite location?
I don't really, because, it's wherever I throw my hat is my home. My body was born in Denmark. Am I Danish? I don't think so. I have a Danish passport. Doesn't make me Danish. I grew up in Sweden. I've been living on Iceland, Spain, Indonesia. I meet beautiful, beautiful people everywhere. That is sometimes confused, will join the club, and sometimes messed up, will join the club. But otherwise than that, what I find is that there is a dark force, like a bully that is trying to control us. And that force is more or less everywhere where I've been. I don't know anywhere where it's not. So I don't have a favorite spot. I feel extremely blessed to be where I am now. I'm on the island of the gods, or what is called Bali. And it's the most gentle, kind place that I've ever been in my whole life.
Very nice.
They have a very special mix of the Hindu and Buddhism here on this island. It's not like the other islands where Muslim are Muslim. And nothing bad about Muslims, but there is a very different mindset. It's much more stricter. I feel when I go to Muslim countries, I've been to many, there's not this joy, there's not this kindness, not this, because of the Quran, which is very strict in many areas. Here, there's a whole different way of living, different way of the law of karma is very prominent. They have, they really, really try to be beautiful, kind, gentle individuals. And it's amazing to see when you got like a whole country. No, this is not a country. It's an island.
It's an island, yeah.
But when you got like communities of kindness, when you got that, of course, there's a darker image behind it. But when that is the prominent feeling, it's just amazing. And here, for instance, if in the traffic here is mad, it's absolutely mad. And at the same time, it's fantastic. I think, most people go on scooters. It's absolute mayhem. But at the same time, there's no honking, there's horns, there's no aggression, there's nothing. They've got like a general rule, stay on the left, please. That's about it. Don't get hurt. Don't hurt anyone. That's about it. And then you can do anything you want, including driving up on the pavement. Nobody reacts. And if you mess up, and I messed up a lot, I'm met by these beautiful smiles where they see, oh, I see you, brother. You totally messed up now. You have no idea what you're doing, do you? And then a beautiful smile, and they help you out of this situation. So to go into an intersection in the beginning was like, I'm not going to survive this whole thing. But then if you just put your intention to it and you push your way through in a gentle but direct way, you come out on the other side just like the others, and everything is good. So I find it super interesting that to drive in chaos like this where there are no rules. I would say if you see this symbolically, I think that most people have a very good heart, and there are no need for rulers. There are no need for like thousands of different laws. If you have the intention of kindness and gentleness and not hurting and not being hurt. And these are back to the 10 commandments, more or less, just follow that. Don't steal. Don't grab your neighbor's wife, don't lie, be a nice person, do to others what you want them to do to you. It's very simple. And then just to actually experience it here on a physical level, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And what they do on a scooter, the other day we overtook, there was this guy on one scooter. He had a lot of big barrels on him. And I kid you not, 6 dogs sitting totally freely on top of these cans.
Wow.
And just a big smile. How is that even possible? I've seen like the most 5 people on one scooter. I don't know how they pack. I mean, they can load stuff on it where you like, is this even possible? And nobody reacts. Everybody's just helpful, kind, gentle. So I feel this in a very symbolic way. This is showing up there is a way to live without rulers. We're being told if you let go of the laws, there will be anarchy. Well, what is anarchy? As far as I know, it's living without rulers. We don't need people to tell us what to do. We know in our heart what is right and wrong. We were born like that. We just need to start listening to the heart instead of the mind, and stop getting out of our own greed, the I, me, mine field, and get into this beautiful feeling of giving and generosity. I mean, it's beautiful to do that. And here on this island, I have not smelled a foul smell, I think, at all. And this is in tropical climate. It is the smell of incense and flowers, and they're doing all of these ceremonies. I have no idea what they're doing. Very odd things, but very beautiful as well. They got one special day for where they worship metal or iron and thank iron for everything it's bringing. Or there's one day for pets. There's one day for small companies, and they work. It's, so
it seems like you really, this experience really, like transformed your life there, Oli, living in Bali there in Indonesia.
This is, in one way we escaped from Spain. It was an absolute escape, based on fear and then we came here and we were given this absolute gift, but Bali is brutal to other people. They say Mother Bali will spit you out if you don't appreciate her. She will not tolerate you, So, but we live in absolute gratitude being here and on a daily basis trying to really just be so grateful to be alive and be here in a place like that. And also the people that are here is really interesting. And not only the locals, but also there's not a lot of expats left. Most of them left the island, but the people that are here are very, very interesting, very much into healing, very much into all kinds of very advanced knowledge in different areas. So I feel very, very blessed to be here.
You feel connected there. I could tell, Oli. I do. Yeah, you're like a much happier, my friend, being there. I could tell right away. I
am. And at the same time, it's been like a roller coaster coming here because it's like everything is being challenged as well. But I think that goes for all of us in the world at the moment. Every single day, it's like anything that is not healed will come up to the surface. You can't hide it anymore.
Very true.
So you have to deal with it. Yeah.
Very true. And that's what I experienced too. I let these things build up and I didn't handle them like you're talking about. So again, all these things you talk about here, and every time we have these discussions, Oli, it resonates with me tenfold each time. It's pretty wild.
I'm very happy to hear that. Just for your information, I've written several books, but one of them is a small little power book called Remind Me. Mind Me, Remind Me. You can find it on Amazon and whatever. And it's a little bit of the mindset that helps me keep my balance and what has helped me. So, and I downloaded it. They say inspiration, it comes from the word in spiritus, when body and mind align, spirit enters. And this was more or less downloaded. So I'm very grateful to have been part of it. And there's a lot of very easily understood. You can read it in 1 hour, something like that, but it has actually saved lives. So I can highly recommend it. And I'm very grateful to have been part of making it become a material reality.
Very nice.
Michael.
Yes, sir.
I would very much like to finish with a prayer.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I'm not religious because I think that religion is so often being used as a control mechanism once again, but we are all spiritual beings. So here goes. May the entire universe be filled with peace and joy, love and light. That is the entire universe. Every square centimeter, millimeter, inch be filled with peace and joy, love and light. May everyone, and especially the ones who hurt us, be filled with peace and joy, love and light. May the light of truth overcome all darkness. So victory to that light.
Very nice. I do appreciate that. I'm sure everyone listening will really appreciate that as well. Very nice words there from Oli Dammegard. And of course, you can find his book, Remind Me, on Amazon. And of course, you have Shadow of Tears, rather. You can find that on Amazon as well. And Oli, my goodness, time flew by. And of course, it's always a big honor and pleasure for me. Every time we have these discussions, I learn something new every time. And before I let you go, Oli, are there any final parting words you have for the listeners at home? Except for that prayer. That was great, though. But so, I don't know. Not sure you could top that.
Please remember, the only way we're being controlled is through fear. It is only through fear. That is also why we're being bombarded with fear from all different directions. So ask yourself before you get fearful of anything you're being told, is it true? Is it true? Just because it's on a screen in front of you, is it true? Whatever is being delivered to you at this time, or so much of what is being delivered, comes through digital screens in front of you. Okay. That is where the reality of horror is being presented. I dare you, if you look out your window, I am almost certain that what you're looking at is absolute beauty, wherever you are, where nature is apparent, So ask yourself, is it true? And then please also understand fear. Where is fear? Fear, the only way you can't buy fear. You can't go, I want 5 pounds of fear, please. Or can you please share some of yours? Where is it? Your fear, Michael, is in your head, in your mind. My fear is in my mind. So it's not even there. It's not even out there. It's only in the mind. Okay. And it's always connected to something that has not yet happened. You can't fear something from yesterday. You can fear that it will repeat itself, but it's not. It's always connected to the future, and it has not yet happened. So when you think of it, it's an absolute waste of life to be fearful, because you are letting something in your mind that is not even real, connected to something that has not yet happened, which is pure speculation, control your life. And you're letting them get into your mind through that exact mindset. So it's an absolute waste of time, life, energy to be fearful. Is it easy to let go of it? Absolutely not. Is it impossible? Absolutely not. There are ways, So many people have different ways of letting go of fear. And I would say face your fears is one way. I'm sorry, this is not a nice way, but it is a needed way sometimes. You have to face your fears. But you can face it in different ways. It can be done through, if you fear karaoke, try karaoke. You can do it on your own or with your close friends or whatever. Or if you're afraid of heights, challenge yourself. Because whatever it is, where fear is, behind fear is a door. And that door, if you face it and you dare to open it, boom, there's a diamond behind it. I was terrified of speaking in front of people just a few years ago. Terrified, like shaking, crying. I avoided funerals just out of the fear of somebody asking me to say something. I met that fear, and what the hell happened to my life? Suddenly I'm all over the place.
Yes.
So it's like, so fear, let go of it. Some people use music, go nature, hug a dog, hug a cup, whatever works for you, and just let it go. And please understand that we should actually applaud each other, because we are being bombarded from all different directions by the most advanced weapon of psychological warfare through propaganda, you name it, coming from all directions. And we're still standing. We're still standing. So it's amazing. I think we're amazing. So just become aware of your mind, because that is where it's happening. And then just when you become fearful, hug yourself, breathe your way through it. Don't forget to breathe, because very often when we go into fear, it's because we stop breathing. So go have some deep breaths, and then ask yourself, if whatever scared you, is it true? Is it true? Just because someone tells you it, but before you know that it's true, is it even worth reacting to? Just breathe, go for a walk, listen to some nice music, and then come back and look at the situation again. And then get on with your life, but through where you do conscious decisions about your future. And then also visualize, what type of future do you want? Like if you listen to Corona, for instance, it's like going into a roundabout, Corona. You don't go anywhere except into fear mode. But what about the future? How would you like the world to look on the other side of this? And what can you contribute with? What kind of specific skills have you got that can add value to this whole thing? Are you good at baking? Are you a good carpenter? Whatever you're good at can be of value if you add it in the right direction. And then just breathe your way through it. Be brave, be brave, be brave. And then meet this thing, pass it, and let's just get on with life and create a fantastic, beautiful paradise the way it's supposed to be before somebody ate the apple. So don't listen to the mind. Don't listen to the mind. Don't listen to doubt. You will be attacked by doubt. When you decide, yeah, this is what I'm going to do, I guarantee you doubt will enter. That is a tool of defense that we've been set up with, but doubt is the biggest traitor. You should not listen to doubt. Whenever you set this is the road I'm going to go, follow your goosebumps. That will show you the correct way, where your spirit, where your soul wants to go. I totally guarantee you will be attacked by doubt. But that doubt, You should just breathe your way through it. Do not listen to it. Do not listen to it. It will come through the comments of friends and family. And no, you can't do that. No, you have to make a living. Oh, don't be stupid. Don't be silly. You follow your goosebumps. That is the way forward. And then let it go, let it go. And on the other side of this, the more you start giving instead of just wanting, just give, not with the intention of what can I get back. Selfless service is key. Selfless service is key. Just give it, and see the joy you're spreading. Don't do it for that, because then once again, you're back into doing business. Yeah. Just do it. And then if you're free inside, it will start returning to you. And then life becomes magical and beautiful and maybe a little bit scary, but you can handle it in a totally different way.
So many quote-worthy things you've said here, Ole. It's, again, it will definitely resonate with all of our listeners. Definitely confront your fears and allow your life to go on its natural course. I would say most people, fail to do that sort of thing. Like you said, it's very hard to get themselves out of that proverbial hole. And of course, if anybody wants more information, please go to lightonconspiracies.com. And that's where you'll find Ole. Ole, once again, thank you so much for being a part of the program. Always an honor and pleasure. We got to do this again. Ole, we go on months and months without talking.
Up to you, Michael. I'm always here at service.
Thank you so much, Ole. Well, once again, I will talk to you on the other side, my friend.
On the other side. Have a good one.
You too. So, here we are again. Just you and me. This is almost like old times, right? Before I shut it down, I do have some final words for you. I'll try my best not to make this overly sappy. I did feel the need to sort of share this with all of you out there. Those of you who do care. I sort of feel like I owe this to you. So here we go. As much as I enjoy taking some much needed time away from everything here, I was reminded by some of you out there what the show means to you and how I played some role into helping guide you through a dark phase in your life. Yeah, can you believe that? I was contacted by several people I thought I'd never hear from. You know who you are, and I've been reminded just how meaningful all of this truly is. You forget that sort of thing. You really do. As time goes on, you really forget what this means to X, Y, and Z, and then, in my case, you easily forget the stories I was told on how you first heard the show, how you first came across the show, who you were with, what you were doing, the relationships you made through the show. There's so many stories, so many you have shared with me. Shit is insane. It really is. I'm blown away. I am overwhelmed by all the stories that you guys shared with me. I love it. And life has been incredibly strange. Not just with the pandemic, but everything. Everything's been insane for me. Now here comes the sappy stuff. Earmuffs. All the emails have been flattering. If only you knew how diverse this little bubble actually is. Plenty of college students, plenty of folks who work quite serious jobs listening, judges listening, police listening, people overseas working pretty dangerous jobs listening, the alphabet boys, they listen in sometimes. Even convicts have discovered this program. Oh yeah, it's pretty wild. Pretty goddamn wild, yeah. Whoever you are out there, whatever country you're in, whatever you're going through, I just want to say thank you for listening to all of this for all these years. You're just as part of the show as I am. I mean that. You really are. Now, I made promises here and there, and I watched time fly by. That is not like me at all, by the way. That's not even close to what I am in real life. I can't afford to do that again. The last 4 or 5 months have been extremely taxing on the mind. I'm actually surprised I went this long with all the nonsense going on behind the scenes. I went through an endless night and day life review cycle. Yeah, just endless flashbacks of things I've done wrong, people I've hurt, just all kinds of things. It's been pretty wild. And it goes beyond these things that I'm telling you here. I can't really share all the details with you. There are some NDAs I signed. I can't really legally talk about everything. You know how that goes. Oh yeah. I have come to realize all these things were needed. They were all necessary for me. All in order for me to evolve. That's really what it was about. It's cool to pretend that nothing is going on and nothing is bothering you, but eventually you realize that you're slightly broken and damaged. You have to sort of lay low and refocus on shit, get yourself back in the game. Now, some of you out there might be going through something like that. I don't know. It's possible. If that's the case, though, I'm here to tell you, only you can pull yourself out of this situation that you're in. Whatever trouble that you're in, that's all on you. Sure, others can help you, but ultimately it's going to be you. That's just the way it works. And I am proud to say, I have turned it around. It took me a while, but I've been able to acquire some new projects, doing some voiceover work, doing some commercial work, perhaps even playing bass again. Now, I never thought I would ever be playing bass again, but a friend of mine wants me to lay down some bass tracks for him like the good old days. I felt like I probably should. Why not? I miss playing. I also want to say thank you, though, for sticking by me here. Please understand that I am quite addicted to the show, and I'm not going to be going away forever or anything like that. I'm not good with goodbyes, you know that. Those who know me know that. I stay attached to people like a preacher to a crucifix. It's true. Now, I hope you've enjoyed this evening. Before I let you go, I do want to announce that we do have a brand new sponsor here. Oh yeah, we got a live one, folks. We've got a live one. The new affiliate is C60 Power. There will be a link below in the description. Click the affiliate link and enter the coupon code Decon, all caps. Get yourself a little discount there. C60 is actually pretty good. I just started taking it. I got a little boost from it. Not that I need any kind of boost. I'm already all gimmicked up, so I don't need no boost. However, this will kick you up a notch, no doubt. So check them out, C60 Power. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I do want to thank you for being a part of the program. You definitely are a part of this program. Make sure to catch the podcast rendition on all popular podcast platforms. Search Michael Decon, and that is where you'll find gold. And remember, if you want more content, please go to patreon.com/Michael Decon. There are some free shows. However, if you sign up, you get a lot more. That's for sure. You get a lot more. You will get a lot more if you sign up for $5. That's all it is. $5. Very, very cheap, very low cost. High entertainment value. Low price. Where can you go wrong? You can't go wrong. I feel like I'm ripping myself off by giving you the show basically for free here. So $5, not very much. Patreon.com/Michael Decon. Sign up. It'll be the best thing you've done for yourself in your entire life, I promise. Once again, reporting to you live from Hell Central, California. My name is Michael Decon. It's been an honor and pleasure to be here. Please stay safer no matter where you are on this island Earth. And with that said, the world is a mysterious place, and life itself is a mystery. Until next time, mahalo.
Mike in Montclair. What's up, Mike?
Governor, next time you want to sit on a beach that is closed to the entire world except you, Yeah.
You put your fat ass in a car and go to one that's open to all your constituents.
Well, you know,
not just you and yours.
Interesting, Mike. You know what?
What's that? What's that, Gov?
You know, Mike, I love getting calls from communists in Montclair. You know,
you're a bully, Governor, and I don't like bullies.
You know what? And listen, I'm not the one who came on the air. Hey, hold on, Mike. Mike, I'm not the guy who came on the air, swore on the air.
Who swore?
And so you did.
Get the heck out of here.
You know, you're swearing on the air, Mike. You're a bum.
You know,
let's just go. Bad optics,
okay?
Mike. I'd love to come look at your optics every day, buddy. That's you know what, and you know what, Mike. What matters is what you do. That's what matters.
And what have you done?
What I just did was stop.
Now, again, you know, I don't want to pinpoint it because, well, I think you kind of know the answer to that.
Paradox?
Yes, you discussed that with Goldberg, and he has a good finger on it.
Yes.
Hey, listen, also, beyond Von Daniken, pay attention to Whitley. Whitley is also not who he would appear to be. Be very careful of Dr. Hoagland. Hoagland has secrets. He knows things. And he hasn't even begun to indulge his treasure of secrets.
All right. I appreciate the call. No, Dr. Goldberg is not who he says he is. Whitley is not who he says he is. And watch out for Richard Hoagland. Earth changes, tsunamis for the Northwest sometime no later than August. Okay. Time Traveler line at area code 702-727-1295.